Hello everybody, I am Jessica Sprankle and I'm a G2 in the architecture program, master's program.
Yeah, I'm Jelena Loncar. I graduated undergrad.
So when we started our research, we were really interested in vernacular architecture and kind of received some guidance towards a very specific type of vernacular architecture located in southern Italy called the Trulli, located in the Apulian region of Italy, which is essentially the heel of the boot. We went to a number of different cities. We went to a number of different cities, including Alberobello, Ustuni,
Celier, Messapica, Matera. And I just want to mention that the reason that we were so interested in Apulian vernacular was because we learned a little bit about the longevity of the vernacular in the region and how it had become something that had like adapted so far from what its original intention was. So we thought, oh god, that's really loud. We thought it would be really interesting to go to this region and try to get a grasp and understand a little bit about how the vernacular had adapted over time and evolved so far from its original intention.
Yeah. So the number of cities that we went to, I think we went to 8 different cities, but we're going to focus on 3 primary cities. Alberobello, 4 actually. So Celier, Messapica, where we conducted, it wasn't actually a restoration workshop, we expected it to be, but it was a ground-up construction of a Trullo cone. Alberobello, which has the highest density of Trulli in southern Italy. Matera, which has a high concentration of a different type of vernacular that we were also very interested in, called the Sassi, which is a cave dwelling, and then also Ostuni, so a hill town, the White City in southern Italy.
So this region is, I think, I just want to mention that geographically it's a very dry, arid region, doesn't get a lot of rain. There are no really large water features, lakes, ponds, rivers. So I was saying it's a really arid region, very dry, there aren't a lot of water features. And the way that the vernacular developed had a lot to do with the ground and the land that it's built upon.
Yeah, so
it's very like all stone and...
Yeah, so southern Italy is essentially the breadbasket for the entire country. You have about 6 inches of topsoil before you have just solid rock. So olive trees in this country, or in this region, as well as other types of agriculture, they're very conscious of how water is deployed and are very conscious of their resources. So this type of vernacular developed as a farmhouse dwelling and as a grain storage and other resource storage center. It was never meant to be kind of a high cultural thing, which is the image that now kind of represents southern Italy. Like I said, the breadbasket of the South. This vernacular has been established in southern Italy for about 600 years. So it was being built during the Renaissance. The Renaissance really wouldn't have succeeded without the agricultural production of the South at that point. So this is kind of like the supporting factor that was never really recognized as a cultural aspect of the Renaissance. So the workshop that we were a part of, we were the only 2 English-speaking students. There were students from Bari, from Alberobello, and from other Brindisi, other parts of southern Italy, and we had an in-country advisor who was helping us kind of translate. So the construction of the Trullo cone started with this arrival of just a slab of rocks. And we have a quick video of the Trullo master, the Trullato. Oh my god. I am sorry.
That's Angelo. So what he's doing right now is he's breaking up the limestone in order to create the candela, which is the interior structure of the Trullo cone. Can you go back to this?
Yeah. Yes.
So that's the candela. So that's the interior structure of the cones, and the framework is basically just a simple wood structure held up by 2 legs, and rope is pulled down to create like a wire frame around which you build the rock. And the inside of the stones are very carefully cut in order to create sort of a vaulted structure. But the structure of the system isn't vaulted because that's not the way that the structure works. Instead, it's concentric rings of stone that hold each other together, and this section kind of shows that. So that's the first layer of the trullo, and then the second layer is called the candela, which is the exterior, and in between the two layers, the chianque, sorry. And in between the two layers is just like all infill and rubble. So really every single part of the stone is used, nothing is wasted. It's really an efficient use of material. And on the outside, the stone is cut to have a very specific slope.
Yeah, it's for water shedding
purposes. Yeah.
So it's really important to note that for centuries this has been a hand-built architecture, and there has been a very specific mastering of the stone that is still deployed. The man that we were working with was a fourth generation. His father was there helping us, and his son was also there, who was 3 years old, picking up a hammer trying to cut rocks. So it was a really amazing experience to kind of participate firsthand in the construction of something that dates back 500 years in its original construction methods.
And just creating this cone for that entire group of people, it took about 3 days.
Yeah, and it was a very scaled down small cone, so a single dwelling could take months and months to construct by hand.
So that's the finished product.
Yeah.
Just go around the region in which we were in. It was a very rural region, and so we went on walks a lot and discovered so many abandoned trullo, which was really interesting in contrast to how we had seen some of the trullo being repurposed in other regions. There's this dichotomy of trullo that are abandoned and dilapidated and ignored, and then there are other trulli being built for large sums of money for very wealthy people. So it was just interesting, like how certain aspects of the vernacular were being, undermined, and others were being, elevated.
Yeah, and we took a group tour to a trulli that was constructed in the 1700s, and it was exactly the same as the one that we had constructed. So, and in this particular trullo, it was the largest in the region, and it was constructed for dual purposes of dwelling and storing grain. So these were really poor houses. They were never meant to be the resort icon that they have become, and people did everything they could to get out of this living situation because it is really horrible. It's damp, you get cold in the winter, and very dry in the summer. So it's not ideal at all. And these are just interior shots of all of the layers of rings that would go into constructing a single cone.
And that's the ground in this old. It was called Trullo Sovrano, and it's built directly on top of the limestone.
Yeah, it's just bedrock. There is no ground. So Alberobello, this is kind of like the vacation spot for people that want to see what trulli are. The modern image of trulli comes from Alberobello and how they've been repurposed. So this is just a street front, walking through the shops.
And the whole city is just packed densely with all of these different trulli. But what was interesting was that there were really two parts to the city. This part, which was very touristy and very emblematic of the trulli as an icon. And then on the other half of the city was kind of like the normal part of the city where the everyday residents lived, and you'll see in pictures coming up that it's very different.
Yeah,
so Alberobello was to us like a very clear example of how the vernacular was being exploited in order to profit. And simultaneously, it wasn't always a negative thing, because we found that sort of the flattening of this vernacular into an icon and into something,
No, it's okay.
Something that was more of an image of like tourism and stuff. It was actually something that was helping the vernacular and the history of the region thrive in a way and transcend time.
Yeah, it became commodified. Sorry. So the inside of what would have originally have been a farm dwelling now becomes a spot where you can buy miniature trulli to show that you've been to the region.
Also, go back to the church. Also, we saw that the vernacular of something that was typically just an agrarian hut was being repurposed into large structures like churches and museums, like
in other civic areas. Okay, so get to
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's pretty important.
Yeah, so this is just showing the condition of the residential portion of the city versus the more commercial aspect. So these are kind of the pockets of the old city that tourists usually don't go to. They're not, they're meant for the inhabitants, not for the transient. So just kind of.
Yeah, I guess we have to.
Okay, so we had an amazing experience, and it was really interesting to see kind of the redeployment of this historic form in a manner that doesn't really portray any manner the function that was associated with it. So, all right, thank you.